This October, we had a retreat, the Gangsters for Jesus retreat, and I kind of knew a lot of the brothers already. I went with no intention of giving myself to God. I went more with the intention of accompanying my wife and her not being by herself there. Man, was I mistaken. So Saturdays, I'd spend my days, drinking a couple beers, but I'd smoke weed every day. Every single day, I'd smoke weed. I went to this retreat, and I'm hearing from Pastor Isaiah, and they just start speaking. And there was a couple of instances in that retreat that God was speaking to me. Now I know it was God. And it's like, you need to let go. He goes, you need to forgive. You need to let go. And, the next day we had service. And at the end of service, they were kind of handing the microphone around to see, it was a Q&A, right, for the pastors and for leadership. And something just told me to grab that microphone and let loose and, start telling a little bit about my life, and that I was done with it. And I was done with feeling this pain. And I wanted nothing more than to get closer to God. And that's exactly what I did.
Welcome back to another testimony. Today I'm honored to be joined by Michael Mata. He was once a member of the notorious MS-13 gang, but through the grace of God, he found redemption. He was born into the harsh realities of gang life. Michael's early years were shaped by a path that seemed destined for destruction. His journey led him to prison, but in a story of unexpected grace, Michael shares how he came to Christ not by plan, but by divine intervention. Since his conversion, Michael has become a dedicated soldier in the Gangsters for Jesus ministry, living out his faith with passion and purpose. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel for more inspiring testimonies like Michael's. And without further ado, let's get into Michael's story. Welcome back, everyone, to another testimony. Today I got a new guest on today. Mike, thank you for coming on today, man. I do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's very, very blessed to be here, and thank you for allowing me to be on your platform to share this.
Yeah, well, the feeling's mutual, man. To let the audience know, me and you connected through Isaiah Blancas. Once again, for the people watching, they know I've interviewed quite a few people from your guys' ministry now. And, it's always a good testimony when we hear from guys from your ministry. So I'm very excited to hear your testimony now and what you've been through and what God's done in your life, man. So, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you for having me again. And yeah, it's Gangsters for Jesus. Pastor Isaiah. He's my senior pastor, and he started the wheels on this ride that we have. Like they say out here in El Paso, they say carrucha. And this is our ride, and it's Gangsters for Jesus, and we're out here to ride for Jesus 100%.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, how do you, well, I guess you've given your testimony about one time, so you're fairly new to all this, like you're, giving your testimony kind of thing. So, I'll kind of, start with your early life. I suppose that'd probably be the best way to go about this, and just feel whatever you're comfortable sharing, about your early life, and we'll start there and then build up to your adult life and when you started to have encounters with God, finding God. But we'll go to your life like that. We don't have to speed past a bunch of stuff. But what was it like for you growing up?
So it was tough. It was really, really tough. I mean, the odds were set against me at a really young, early age. My parents were very young, and gang affiliated. I was born in California. Um, my mom is originally from El Salvador, but she was brought to the States at a young, early age when they were going through the Civil War out there. And my father, he was the only kid out of nine that was born here in the U.S. He was born here in El Paso, but they were shortly taken to California. And my grandfather and my grandmother, they made Pacoima their home in the San Fernando Valley. My dad he was from the Pacoima Flats gang, and my mom used to roam around with Diamond Street, and in L.A. she lived around the Hollywood area or whatnot. And they found each other through my grandfather. My mom used to work I guess like at a social services office, and kind of played matchmaker with my parents. And they got together, and I think my dad and my mom, I think, is a little older than my dad. She was 18, my dad was 17 when I was born. And they had a lot of problems. They had a lot of problems. At 3 months old, I believe, my mom kidnapped me, and she took me to to Reno, Nevada, where she was running um, kind of like a prostitution scheme out there, where she'd lure people into hotels and she'd rob them. Her and she had a couple partners doing it with, and she got busted, and they found me, and they brought me back to California with my dad, and my mom got an 8-year sentence in federal prison for grand larceny and some other charges. So I didn't really know who my mom was until I was 8 years old, and between that time, I went to go live with my grandfather here in El Paso, Texas. I came to elementary school, not elementary school, but kindergarten. I'm sorry. Went to kindergarten here, and then once I was about 6 years old or so, my aunt Terry, she came down and she kind of told my grandfather that he was a little too old to be raising kids still. So she convinced him to allow her to bring me back to California, and I was under her roof and my uncle Bob, along with some of my cousins, and it was great. I tell you, that was some of the highlights of my childhood. That was about the only childhood I had was during that time where it was, I guess you can say, normalized. Riding bikes and doing what kids do. Um, and then I went to go live with my dad. I believe I was about a little bit after 7. He got with his girl, and um, it was tough. She started abusing me physically, started smacking me around or whatnot. And my dad was never home. He worked security for Warner Brothers, and a couple of other studios, and Pasadena Art College over there. And he was never home. He worked all day, and he would get home real late, and I would never see him. So one day, his girlfriend, my one of my little brother's moms, um, she didn't really know how to cook, and I don't know if you know what Vienna sausages are, right? The little
Mhm.
sausages that come in a can. So she gave me that for dinner, and I didn't want to eat it. And I was really, little and fragile, very skinny, and I was real small. And she said, eat your food, and she smacked me behind my head. My head hit the table, and she knocked a tooth out of my mouth. And that tooth is still crooked. That front tooth grew out kind of crooked.
Dang.
But you know, I told my dad, and he didn't believe me. He said that I was lying. She said that I fell and hit my face on the table, that I slipped, that I was lying and trying to cause problems. Um, so about a week after, our grades came in, and they were a bit low, and I got scared. I was scared that she was gonna hit me. And my aunt Terry lived right down the street from the school. Probably about, I might be wrong, but about 5 houses away from the school, maybe less, right up the block. This was Canoga Park Elementary, and in the San Fernando Valley in California. And I ran away. I ran away. 7 years old. I took off and went to my aunt Terry, and I told her what happened, and she got angry at my dad and took me back in. And my mom got out of prison when I was 8. And when my mom got out of prison, I was missing that motherly love. Although my aunt Terry showed me all the love in the world, and I wouldn't know the manners that I know today if it wasn't for my uncle Bob. Simple stuff like no elbows on the table, eat with your mouth closed. And things like that. I learned it. How to work for your money. He'd have us do chores, and he'd come up with Bart Simpson dollars. He'd print out little Bart Simpson dollars, and they'd come in fives and tens, and depending on what we would do, and when we would accumulate enough, we'd go to KB toy stores, and we were allowed to get a toy of our choice. Back then, it was Ninja Turtles, right? Me and my cousin were all about Ninja Turtles, and and things like that. So when my mom got out of prison, I'll never forget. I was at a soccer game. I was playing soccer, and I used to play baseball as well. And my aunt told me, she's like, "Hey, see that lady over there? She was posted up on a tree, kind of like that." And I looked, and she's like, "That's your mom." And my first reaction, I immediately ran to her because it's something that I was missing. Like I said, my Aunt Terry showed me all the love in the world, but during Christmas time, you know, I, 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 I just, you can feel the difference. And I would run to the room sometimes, and I'd cry myself to sleep. Just wishing I had my mom with me. And so it wasn't. I didn't hesitate at all. Right away, I ran to my mom and I gave her a hug. I mean, I didn't even know this lady, and just by pictures or whatnot. And my mom and my dad tried to work things out. They got back together, and they ended up getting a house in North Hollywood, and it was very problematic. It was a very toxic environment. There was a lot of fighting going on. My dad, he's battled addictions most of his life. He's cocaine, and I remember seeing the garage door cracked open a little bit, and I remember seeing like burnt cans and stuff like that. I never understood what it was though at that age. And my mom, she was trying her best. She was trying her best. She had a good job, and she was trying her best to do good. But unfortunately, she would interact with a lot of her past. She would still interact with people that she knew from her past. And one day, my mom got home from work, and she was making dinner. I was sitting down watching TV with my dad. Um, might have been My dad's an avid fisherman, so he would watch a lot of fishing shows or whatnot. So it might have been a fishing show, and he started talking about an incident with that they had with my grandparents on my mom's side about money. And my mom kind of told him like, "Hey, I don't want to hear that right now. Um, let's talk about something else. I'm making dinner." And my dad just kept on poking, and my mom was one of those bears you do not poke. My mom has a temper, very bad temper. Um, and Next thing I knew, I saw a ping pong paddle fly through the middle of the air and crack my dad in the head and cracked his head open. He started convulsing, and back in those days, um, tiger stripe sofas were were in style. There were white sofas with black tiger stripes on them, and my mom was more concerned about him staining the sofas and him convulsing on the floor. And I had seen them fight so much, I kind of just, looked at him, and I was like, I kept on watching TV, and then I noticed the blood, was kind of seeping out a lot, and told her, I was like, "Mom," I go, "he's bleeding." He was still out, and she got scared, and I helped my mom drag my dad to a little fold up bed that we had that I used to use when I used to fall asleep in the living room watching TV or whatnot. Um, so once he woke up, he got up, and he was freaked out. He told my mom to get away from him, and she was psycho that he was going to call her parole officer. And the next day, when my mom was pretty much like, "Okay, well, we need to separate or whatnot," you know, um, my mom's best friend was my cousin Rosa. My cousin Rosa was about my mom's age, so I used to call her Tia. It's a custom a lot in our culture. That we have older cousins, we end up calling them Tia until we make them feel old. Then they say, "No, I'm your cousin." but but yeah, so at that time you know she was Tia Rose, or we'd call her Roach, Aunt Roach, and she was there visiting my mom, and my dad came out with a gun to his head, and he was threatening to kill himself, and he didn't pull the trigger, but he left, and that was that. That was that with that relationship. Um, Ultimately, we ended up leaving the house. The house got affected by some floods that we had in California in those years, some bad floods, and our house ended up, specifically my room. The roof caved in my room, and I had no room no more. And mold started developing, and and we ended up losing it. And So that's when kind of bad things started happening for my mom. We were hopping around, apartment to apartment, going around, you know, um, city to city within Los Angeles, hopping between LA and the San Fernando Valley. And, she was dating, you know, um, various men, and these weren't the best men. A lot of them were ex-convicts, a lot of them were, Mexican mafia members. Um, that's who she associated herself with. That's who she hung around with. And so she ended up we ended up living in some duplexes. That were My grandparents lived in those duplexes, and one day I got home from school, and I walk in, and my mom's laid out on the floor, staring at the ceiling, and she has a bunch of track marks all over her arms. And I don't know, I was about 10 years old or so. And I started smacking her around to wake her up, and she got up, and and I was like, man, that's when I knew things were bad, for her. And not too long after that, I get home from school again, and my mom never shows up again. One day led to two, 2 day led to three. On the third day, I went to my grandparents, and they're like, well, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "My mom never came back." It's like, "So what have you been doing?" Like, "I've been making myself food, and I've been going to school myself and dressing myself." And I was, well, they kind of got angry at me that I didn't go right away. And yeah, my mom didn't come back. She was out on the street, strung out, and she ended up getting arrested, and she got a almost a 2 year violation. I think it was about an 18-month violation or so. And I went back with my dad, and at that time, my dad was dating my other brother's mom, Patty. Rest in peace. She passed away a few years ago. Um, she was very kind-hearted. She showed me a lot of love. She was young. She was younger than my dad, so she wasn't used to taking care of an older kid. I was still young myself, but preteen or whatnot. But she tried her best. We would rollerblade, and she'd go out and take me to the mall, and she was um she was awesome. I love Patty. And my little brother was born. He was my little shadow. I was so happy to have a little brother. He'd follow me everywhere. Um, I taught him his first words, and at that time, I'm not sure if you're familiar with West Side Connection, right? With the
Hmm.
rap group. So
Yeah.
they were very popular. They had just came out at that time, and my brother's first words were West Side. Those were his first words. He'd say West Side, and ramen with egg in it, right? He'd say soup. Right away, he'd look at me, and I was like, "You hungry?" He's like, "Soup, soup," and I'd make him his top ramen with an egg in it, right? To this day, he's grown, and to this day, he still eats top ramen with egg in it. And it was great. But I was around 12 years old or so, and I started hanging around party crews and stuff like that. That was really big at that time in LA, and started hanging around the wrong crowd, and I started ditching school. And again, my dad he battled addiction, so he was there, but he wasn't. The only time we'd have close interaction was when we'd go fishing. Besides that, he wasn't interested on what I liked, on if I liked any sports, if I wanted to play any sports. I was really big. I love hockey, right? Believe it or not, I know how to ice skate really well. Um, and he wasn't interested in that stuff. It was all Patty that would take me out rollerblading at night, and she'd buy me my hockey sticks and pucks and stuff like that. And I had a really good friend of mine that I knew from school. Um, he was into ice hockey, so I'd go with him. But I started to ditch a lot. It was becoming a problem where I was going to school, you know, 3 days out of the week, and the rest of the time I was ditching. And it's just not going to like a friend's house. Like, we'd go to Universal Studios. We'd ditch school, and we'd find our way to Universal Studios and sneak in. And we got caught one time, and my dad had to pick me up from the police station. Right there, there's a police station adjoining to to the City Walk right there next to Universal Studios Hollywood. And my grandfather was mentioning, my dad was mentioning to my grandfather on my mother's side that that he was having problems, and my grandfather convinced him to send me to El Salvador with him. At that time, El Salvador was dealing with a mass influx of deportations of a lot of bad guys. Um, they were going through a transformation, a really really bad transformation, a very violent transformation, and so there I go at 12 years old to El Salvador with my grandfather. I was supposed to go to school. And at first it was great because my aunt Wendy was out there. My That's my mom's little sister, and she was like a sister to me because we weren't that far in age. We're only about 3 or 4 years difference in age. So I didn't look at her like an aunt. I looked at her more like a sister. So I was happy she was out there, and things were good. Things were good. We were working for my grandfather. My grandfather had a rental video store, so we'd go help out with the store, and it was okay. It wasn't bad at all. I had some good friends there, and then my aunt Wendy, she came back to the States, and my grandfather went and took me with one of my aunts out there, and I didn't really know my family out there. I didn't grow up on my mom's side of the family. I knew my grandparents and a couple of cousins that were in California, but that was it. I grew up majority, of the time with my dad's side of the family. I consider my cousins my brothers and my sisters my close cousins. I got about four cousins that I grew up with, and I consider them more, brother and sister than anything. Um, so I went with my aunt and my uncle, and had some cousins there, and they were kind of involved in some gang stuff, and I was always intrigued by it. I guess it was, being that I was around it so much with my mom. Um, I liked it. I gravitated towards it, and maybe it was the family aspect of it, right? That they consider themselves like a family or whatnot, and I was missing that. So maybe it was that, but I gravitated towards it, and then I had a fallout with my uncle, and my uncle told me, he's like, your dad gave me permission to discipline you if I needed to, and that got me angry. And just like my mom, you know, I unfortunately I had those generational curses where I inherited her temper. I had a really bad temper where I'd go from 0 to 100 in flick of a switch. And on that moment, I hit a switch, and I told him, I go, I'm not your kid. I go, you lay your hands on me, you're gonna expect me to swing back at you. I go, because I am gonna swing back at you, if not worse. And so we had a big argument, and I ran away that night. And the first group of guys that I met on the corner, I heard them speaking English. So right away, I went and I started talking to them, and they're tripping out, like, "Who's this kid? Like, just comes out of nowhere, talking English." And I told them, I was like, "Well, yeah, I'm from California, and these guys were from the Mara Salvatrucha. They were from the MS gang, and there was this guy they called Goat. They call him Chivo, and he's like, "Well, what are you doing?" I was like, "Ah," I go, "I ran away." He's like, "Well, you need a place to stay?" He goes, I was like, "Well, yeah." And he's like, "Are you part of a gang?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "I just hung around party crews in California." And he's like, "Well, we're from MS." He's like, he goes, "You can go and stay with me." So I left, complete stranger. I went, but like I said, I gravitated to that life, and things happened very quickly after that. I got jumped in to MS, and I started doing drugs. Um, and I wasn't even 13 years old yet, and I was already smoking. I was already smoking cocaine and doing rock, and I was doing embalming fluids, smoking sherm sticks, smoking a lot of marijuana. Having intercourse with older girls that were a lot older than me, um, and I liked it, and I wanted nothing more than to be feared. I fed off of it. Um, so this was in a town called, for short, they call it Zacate. It has a long name, but it's called Zacate Coluca. and that's where my mom's side of the family is from my grandmother's side. So eventually, I ended up meeting other members from across the country, and I ended up making my way to San Salvador, which is the capital, and pretty much started hanging out in a place called Plaza Surita. It was a very, very bad place in El Salvador. Um, and I became a very, very numb, ruthless little boy. By this time, I was 13 years old. Um, I had gotten my forehead tattooed. I had MS on my forehead, and I had a big hand all over my chin, all right here. I had MS on my back. Um, I wanted to be the worst of the worst, so I got tested. We so so we were hanging out on a water tower one night. We were smoking weed. It was a group of us, and we start hearing like this little ping noise, like rocks hitting the water tower. And we look over, and there's a guy with a slingshot. They use slingshots a lot out there. They use everything: machetes, slingshots, M16s, grenades. Um, well, this guy was trying to get us with the slingshot, and it's not, they use ball bearings, and those things will kill you. Um, so we said, we got to get down and see who this is. So we started getting down, and they were hitting right next to us, and I think a couple hit a few of my friends, and we made it to the bottom. And once we got about a quarter way down the ladder, it was like this steel ladder. The guy started running, and a lot of us we jumped from a being kind of high to try to catch him, and we caught up to him about 2 blocks away, and we started beating him. And I grabbed the rock, and man, I grabbed the rock, big rock that was on the side of the street. Back then, El Salvador wasn't the city that it is. There isn't the country that it is today. They still had cobblestone roads, and there was a lot of rocks on the side of the highways and stuff. And so there was this big rock on the side of the sidewalk where we were beating him up, and I smashed his head wide open with that rock. Split open like a watermelon. Um, sorry. So so that's when things changed for me. Um, you know, my mentality. I got what I asked for. I wanted to be ruthless, and that I became. Um, I was very ruthless. Did a lot of things. Um, I became accustomed to the smell of burnt flesh. Um, I learned how to use a machete very well. I learned how to make grenades out of electrical tape, um, some lead or some nails, and some firework powder. They had some pretty powerful fireworks out there, and I learned how to make shotguns out of just combining a couple of pipes and welding a nail to the back. Um, I learned how to make a lot of things, and I was 13 years old. Um, I remember another instance where I was being looked for already because I only had a 6-month visa. So my family had no idea um, where I was at this point. The U.S. Embassy was looking for me, and I didn't want to be found. Um, I was living on the streets over there in El Salvador, and you know, I was happy. I was happy living that violent life. Um, and one day, we're we're walking, and a lot of the members from El Salvador, you know, they would collect money on the corners, and so we had just seen this girl that had just gone jumped into the gang, and she was about my age, and we had just seen her. She was collecting money on the corner, and we're about half a block away, and we heard a big boom. The guys from the rival neighborhood, 18th Street, they were right a few blocks up. They passed by on a bus and threw a grenade at her, and we went back, and she was in bad shape. Her jaw was hanging, and I mean, it was she was in bad shape. She died instantly. Um, I got to witness a lot of stuff like that. You know, bullets just passing by when you're running, and you throw rocks at each other. I've seen people get hit with rocks. And, it was tough. And one day I got approached by some members, and they knew, they knew I knew English very well, and they were like, "Hey, like, what do you feel about taking a trip back to California?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'm down." And they're like, "Well," it's like, "we're planning to take a truck out there. Um, if you want to go, let's go." So I hopped on to this vehicle, and they were already following us. Um, we got, to the border, and of Guatemala and El Salvador, and they stopped us, and yeah, I got arrested. I was in possession of weapons of war. That was my charge. So I came out on the news, and my grandpa saw me on the TV. He immediately um, called my dad, and my dad called the U.S. Embassy, and I was visited by them about a couple of days after I was in jail. And they told me, they asked me my name and where I was born, and they kind of told me, like, you're gonna have to be here for about 3 months until you go to court. Um, but once you go to court, you know, um, you'll be on a plane probably the next day back to the States. He said not to worry. And he whispered in my ear, and he goes, "They don't want to mess with us." That's what he told me. So just like he said, I was in a kind of a juvenile hall setting over there, and I tried to escape about 3 times, and I failed. Um, and then I ended up going to court. I stayed overnight at the U.S. Embassy, and next day I was on the plane back to California with my face tattooed, a completely different person. By this time, I was about to turn 14 years old, and my dad saw me, and his mouth kind of dropped. He couldn't believe what was in front of him, and you know, uh, I kind of tried to still follow that life. Um, um, I was with my dad for a little bit after that, and then my mom got out of prison again, and I went back to live with my mom, and things were good. She started a business. She had a um uh it was like a housekeeper agency where people would go to her to get housekeepers and nannies, and she'd assign them to them, and things were really good. We're renting a house. We're renting a room out of this house. And this was in North Hollywood, and it was okay, but I would still gravitate, towards going out and hanging out with the wrong crowd. And one day, it happened again. Um, my mom didn't come back. Um, One day turned to two, just like the first time. Then the lady that we're renting the room from, she approached me, and she's like, "Do you have anyone you can call?" She's like, "I don't think your mom's coming back." So I literally seen her take out all her stuff from our room and throw it on the side of the house. And instead of going back to my dad's, um, I went out to the street, and I knew some people in Pacoima, and I knew some people in Echo Park. Um, over the years, and I was kind of hopping back and forth. Um, I would hang around with the guys from Pacoima Brownstone, and I really developed a really good friendship with some of the OGs from there, and I met some people in Echo Park, and you know, met some of the OGs from there, and I was there for a little bit, and you know, we went out clubbing one day. They had a teen club out there, Club Carnaval, out of the Alexandria Hotel, and every time we'd get out of this club, we'd go to Tommy's. So Tommy Burger is a staple in LA. They serve chili burgers, and it's one of those late night places where you go and eat. And we were out there, and a drive-by happened, and I ended up getting shot in my leg. I got shot in my left leg down here by my ankle, and shortly after, it was a superficial wound. I thank God that it wasn't bad. I was um, it could have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot worse. But once I healed up, I kind of got tired of just waking up and doing the same thing over and over. And called my grandpa, and my grandpa was like, come to Texas. So, so I came to Texas. I came to Texas, and I didn't really um, get into trouble right away, but I started hanging around the wrong crowd again, and dating the wrong girls, and I ended up getting in trouble out here. I picked up an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon charge, and I got put on probation, and 10 years probation, and then shortly after, I picked up a theft of a firearm charge, and I got sent to prison for a year. They didn't violate my 10-year probation, though. They said, you're going to get out and you're going to continue that, but they were going to put me on a monitor. So when I got out of prison, I got put on a monitor, and I cut it off. I violated my probation, and I got 5 years in state prison here. They gave me a year credit for that year that I did. So I went to prison again for 4 years, and I ended up at Middleton, at the Middleton unit first in Abilene, Texas, and I got into a fight, and they reclassified me. And they usually don't send people with 5 years or less to the big prisons. They usually send you to these smaller prisons closer to where you live. But I got sent to the Beta 1 unit in Tennessee Colony, Texas. It's a gladiator farm, what they call. It's a rock and roll prison. It's on lockdown probably about 9 months out of a 12-month calendar year. When I got to the unit, it was on lockdown, mostly racial. Um, and yeah, we had our riots, and I kind of stuck to myself for the most part. Um, I did my 4 years. I thought I was going to be able to make parole, but first time I went up to the parole board, they gave me what's called a serval, and it's basically telling you you're going to do your time day for day. You're not going to see the parole board anymore. So I kind of started doing some illegal things within the prison system. Um, Started bringing in contraband via guards and stuff like that, and I got in trouble. Ended up in medium custody, and would only go out 2 hours a day. An hour in the morning, hour in the evening. The rest of the time was in my cell with the cellie. And I got out of prison in 2004 in August, and I met my wife shortly after, and she got pregnant uh, pretty quickly, and that kind of started changing my life. I stopped hanging around the crowd I was hanging out with, and we made a family. We had two daughters. My other daughter was born 11 months after, and we have four girls now. Um, we just celebrated our 20-year anniversary. But about 2 years ago, um, I got some news, and I've buried this deeply into the ground, and but I almost took my life. And My wife turned to God shortly after that. I didn't. I was kind of battling if I was still going to stay home or if I was going to leave or if we were even going to continue our marriage. Um, and we'd have a lot of issues, and then things would go good, and then we'd have some issues, and the enemy just trying to drag me back um, to that violent person I was, and trying to disrupt my mind. And um, so this October we had a retreat, the Gangsters for Jesus retreat, and I kind of knew a lot of the brothers already. Um, and I went with no intention of giving myself to God. I went more with the intention of accompanying my wife and her not being by herself there. Um, Man, was I mistaken. So and mind you, like at this time, I'm still drinking. I've never been a big alcoholic, but Saturdays, I'm a big college football guy. So Saturdays, I'd spend my days, drinking a couple beers, but I'd smoke weed every day, every single day. I'd smoke weed. Um, and I went to this retreat, and I'm hearing from Pastor Isaiah and Pastor Sal, who runs the Victory Outreach ministry in Tucson, Arizona. He was a guest of ours, and they just start speaking, and there was a couple of instances in that retreat that God was speaking to me, and now I know it was God. And it's like, you need to let go. He goes, you need to forgive, you need to let go. And they had this situation where they were within a fire pit, and everyone was kind of throwing the things that they wanted to get rid of in their lives into this fire pit. And I wanted to so bad, and I didn't. And I immediately regretted it when we got back to our bunk. Um, my wife and I, they were kind of like these little studios, I guess, that they have for guests. And I regretted it. I regretted it. And then, the next day we had service, and at the end of service, they were kind of handing the microphone around to see, it was a Q&A, right, for the pastors and for leadership. And something just told me to grab that microphone and let loose and, start telling a little bit about my life, and that I was done with it. And I was done with feeling this pain, and I wanted nothing more than to get closer to God. And that's exactly what I did. And my wife kind of got surprised because she had no idea and that I was going to do this. And I snatched the mic from one of our brothers, and I just went off, and my tears started flowing. And that's when I decided that I was giving my all to the Lord, not 90%, not 95. I was willing to give 100% of my life to my Lord and Savior, and He flew through me. And that night, it's like I told you earlier, like the saying goes, He comes as a thief in the night and takes away, your addiction. And when He did just that, I woke up enlightened. My spiritual eyes were open, my ears were open. Um, I didn't want alcohol no more. I actually deleted my entire playlist of the music that I would listen to on our way back, and started listening just to worship music. And I listened to a lot of kingdom music, Brian Trejo, and that's all I listen to now. And I haven't touched marijuana anymore, um, and I live to serve um, my King, um, and I enjoy it, and it changed my life. Um, and since then, it's just things have gone so well um, in my professional life, um, my marriage, my relationship with my kids, and just the overall way I look at things now. It's entirely different. Um, I live to serve and to make change and to spread the word. Um, I want nothing more than to help lift those that are at the very bottom, that find themselves battling with the enemy day in and day out, that think that they have no hope. Um, I find myself now living to serve the Lord for them and to bring them in. And I've already seen a tremendous amount of change in some people. Um, and just to be able to know that God used me as an instrument for those people. Really, it doesn't matter if it was just one, and it's all well worth it. Um, a lot of I used to question my wife a lot because when she's been in this a lot longer than I have, and I used to question her a lot because she stopped watching football with me, and I kind of get angry and I go, man, I go, that's all you do, and you spend more time with the ministry than you do with me, and it's funny because this past weekend, we had one actually brother Richard Montes that was on your show. He just got married,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a Gangsters for Jesus wedding, and that Saturday morning, we were playing handball, and you know, um, it was all about the ministry. And then Sunday comes, and I was able to bring a good friend of mine to come to church in the alley. He's from LA as well, and battling some things, and he's like, "Hey, what you think about Georgia beating Texas?" And I was like, "Man," I go, "You know what? I completely forgot about college football." And then I thought about my wife, and I understood. I understood why those superficial things did not matter. They weren't a priority to her anymore. I understood because it wasn't a priority to me anymore. Um, I understood why she spent so much time with the ministry, and I understood why she would read the word so much. It's very important that we reinforce our armor, our spiritual armor daily, because the enemy will try to pick at it if we don't. And and you become addicted to the word because of that, because you don't want to go back to the person you were, and um, the word will keep you focused and in tune with God. And the more you are in tune with God, um, the more um, the more the enemy is rebuked and reflected and cast away from you. But as soon as you give him an inch, he's gonna take it. He's gonna take it. If you leave any holes in that armor, he's gonna try to find those holes. Um, you know, so it's very important that we stay in tune with God, and in order for us to to be able to stay focused on our mission, on what we're supposed to do daily. Reading the verse, starting our day off with it, is I think it's kind of like they said, like it's breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Well, I think that's one of the most important things of the day you need to start your day with. Kind of like brushing. I tell people it's like brushing your teeth. You stop brushing your teeth, what happens? Your teeth start rotting out, your breath starts stinking. Um, it's kind of the same. You don't read the word, and you don't stay in tune with God daily. The enemy is going to try to find one way or another to make to get into your head and start bringing those old intuitions and those old thoughts that you used to have back to you. And no one's perfect. We strive to be, but we are not perfect by a long shot. And but there's a big difference between living in sin and falling into sin. And we'll fall into sin. It happens either by our language or by our temper or whatever the case may be. But as long as you stay in tune with God, and you ask for forgiveness daily, and you know He'll bring you back onto that road you're supposed to be on. And and I wouldn't have it any other way. I love it. I love my ministry. I love my brothers and sisters in Christ. I'll take off the shirt off my back in an instant for any of them. And ironically enough, most of them were my enemies back in the days. Were my enemies, and now I cry with them, I hug with them, and it's a genuine connection that we have. It's true, it's real, it's not fake. They're not. when you're involved in gangs and stuff, people might, especially prison gangs, um, yeah, they'll call you brother and carnal and all this stuff, but in an instant, they will take your life if they're told to. Um, what we have here, it's genuine love, and they know they can call me at whatever hour, and I know I can call them at whatever hour if I ever need them. And we're out here on a mission to serve God, and not to not to just go on Sundays and live in sin throughout the week and then feel good about ourselves on Sundays by going to church every now and then or whatnot. No, we breathe and live this every single day. Um, Sundays when we go out, we're an army, and we go out and hit those streets, and you know, um, it's very fulfilling, and it's a purpose that we all have, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. Well, Mike, that was an amazing testimony. I think you have a phenomenal story that you have to share, and I think you did great. I really do. The way you structured your story, you really opened up about some things that were definitely hard for you to talk about. Your early life, just the dysfunctional family. Growing up, and the love that you lacked and stuff from family, and just really trying to find a family, and then you end up finding a gang, and it led to a lot of destruction, and then eventually getting locked up, going to prison, and then after all these years, you eventually found God, right? I mean, it's amazing how that works, and
Yes.
and how you've been on this path now for, I don't know, what, like 4 5 months now, about
October,
October, yeah. So,
October,
and we're in
yeah,
December.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you have a really good testimony, and I think you, and as long you keep doing what you're doing, you stick to what you're gonna do, you're gonna continue to grow, and you're gonna continue to help people out with other people that may have been to prison, or just struggled with a background of a broken home, because there is a lot of people that grow up in situations like that, and it just leads to a lot of destruction. So it kind of sets up for failure in the future. So, and there's no coming back from that. But
correct.
you did find some hope, through the Lord. So that is pretty. That's a blessing in itself, a big one. And
Absolutely, absolutely. He can do it for anyone. It's, our a lot of people say, well, it's hard to leave addiction and it's hard to leave, certain habits. The hardest thing is giving your complete trust to God. That's the hardest thing. Once you give 100% of your trust in Him, He'll take care of everything else, and that's what a lot of people don't understand.
mhm.
They think it's like, oh man, like I'm gonna have the urge to do this. He'll take those urges away, but you can't have one foot in and one foot out, or half a foot, out. You need to trust 100% in order for Him to do that. And once you do that, he'll do it. He'll do it. You won't want those things. And it's not just talk. It happened to me. I mean, I've smoked weed, smoked um, for a very long time. I mean, very long time. And it went to the point where I'd use the excuse where it's like, oh, well, I need, I just use it to sleep for medicinal purposes. I don't even smoke it no more. I use it in a vaporizer. That's nonsense. It's nonsense. God will take it away from you 100%. When, my wife, we went on a date and we go to this place called Alamo Draft House, and they serve beer there, right? They serve food in the movie theater while you're watching the movie. And she's like, "Are you sure you want to go there?" And I was like, "Why?" She's like, "Well, I don't want you, to I guess, to be enticed." And I was like, "Don't even worry about that." I was like, "I don't want it." And even for my wife, it's been a little bit of a like, wow, like she was like, "This was quick." Like God worked fast with you, and it was like that. And but you got to give 100% to Him. And you do that, I promise. Things will be better, and you won't have to worry about leaving those things. He'll take them. He'll take them from you, but you have to trust. That's the hardest part.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you want to pray us out? Pray for the people that may be struggling with the things that just kind of like what you went through in your early
Ab-
life.
Absolutely. So, Lord, again, I thank you. I thank you for giving us another day, Lord. And again, I thank you for allowing me to use this wonderful platform to reach out to folks. And Lord, I ask that you rebuke anything that is not of you to those that are trying to find your way, Lord, and just open up their eyes and their ears and soften up those hearts of stone that they have, and know that you are the way, Lord, and you will show them their path. They've had a path since they were born, Lord, and they've always had this road to you. They've found different avenues and alleys to stir away from you, Lord. But I pray that you open their eyes, Lord, and get into their hearts and use me as an instrument to find them, and for them to find the inspiration, the courage to give it all to you, Lord. Just to rely on you, Lord, and give 100% trust in you, Lord, for that is the way, and they will find their purpose, Lord. They'll find this purpose, and I know that you will take everything that is not of you away from them. In your mighty name I pray, Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. God bless you.
God bless. Michael's testimony is truly remarkable. He made the incredible transformation from being deeply involved in a violent gang to embracing the Christian faith. His story speaks volumes to anyone who may be struggling, just as Michael once did. It serves as a powerful reminder that there is always hope. No one is beyond redemption. You can leave behind a life of crime and embrace a life dedicated to the Lord. Please comment anything that you got out of this podcast. Me and Michael would love to hear it. Please share this testimony with anyone else that you think needs to hear this. Hit the like button if you enjoyed today's testimony. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay updated. And of course, please subscribe to my channel. At the end of this video, a testimony playlist will pop up of all the other testimonies I've got to cover. Thank you again so much for watching, and of course, we'll see everyone on the next one.